A rare cancer diagnosis sparks a sudden resignation, instantly igniting a political firestorm that exposes the deepest divides in Washington.
Yeah, it really is this profound collision. You have a deeply personal family tragedy just crashing headfirst into, well, raw political combat.
Exactly. And it is all happening in real time. So we're going to do a quick rundown of the facts for you so you know exactly what is going on.
Right, let's get into the timeline.
So Tulsi Gabbard is stepping down as the Director of National Intelligence, and her exit is effective on June 30th, 2026.
Which is coming up.
Very fast. And on paper, the reason for this sudden exit is heartbreaking. Her husband, Abraham Williams, was recently diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer.
Yeah, and she stated she needs to step away to fully support him through this battle.
Right. But the context around this is huge. She is leaving after a highly turbulent 15-month tenure.
A very turbulent 15 months, yeah.
And this departure actually makes her the fourth cabinet-level official to leave Donald Trump's administration in a really short span.
Which is a staggering statistic. I mean, 4 top-level exits.
Right. She follows former Attorney General Pam Bondi, former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and former Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-Dearmer.
That level of turnover at the highest ranks of national security, it forces the entire system to constantly adjust to new leadership.
It really does. But if you peel back the immediate headlines about her family crisis, you find a 15-month tenure defined by shredded intelligence reports, secret domestic raids, and a quiet, ongoing war with President himself.
That is the core of it, yes.
So our mission for today's deep dive is to unpack the stack of sources covering this event for you. We are going to explore the fierce partisan reaction to her departure, the behind-the-scenes clashes she had over foreign policy, and the massive restructuring she attempted within the intelligence community.
And the place we really have to start is the immediate aftermath of the announcement, because the reaction itself tells you everything you need to know about the current temperature in Washington right now.
I am honestly still trying to wrap my head around how fast this happened. I mean, we moved from the announcement of a severe cancer diagnosis to explosive public attacks in like a matter of minutes.
Literally minutes, yeah.
Historically, isn't there an unwritten rule about this? Like some kind of political grace period?
There used to be, for sure. For decades, the standard playbook in Washington was that if a bitter rival stepped down due to a family medical emergency, critics would, pause their attacks for at least a few days.
Right. You offer thoughts and prayers.
Exactly. You offer thoughts, you offer prayers, and you just hold your fire out of basic human respect.
But that completely vanished here.
It evaporated instantly. The moment her resignation became public, Democrats just seized the opportunity to critique her 15-month record.
They didn't hold back at all.
No, they didn't. So Senator Adam Schiff, who was one of her fiercest critics during her confirmation, he issued a statement. And he offered the standard prayers for her husband, but in the exact same breath, he explicitly stated, and I quote, "Tulsi Gabbard's only positive contribution to our nation's national security is her resignation."
Wow. Which is just a brutal thing to put in print on the day someone leaves to care for their dying spouse.
It is brutal, and Schiff went on to accuse her of politicizing intelligence operations. He argued she dismantled critical agencies and weaponized the whole intelligence community to pursue baseless election fraud claims.
And he definitely wasn't the only one saying things like that.
No, not at all. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer chimed in. He wished her family strength, but then he immediately warned the president not to use the upcoming vacancy to reward loyalty over competence.
And some members of the House didn't even bother with the thoughts and prayers part, right?
Yeah, that's true. Representatives Beyer and Shri Thanedar, they literally just tweeted, "Good riddance."
Just good riddance.
Yeah. Thanedar even called her handling of the Iran situation the biggest display of intelligence incompetence in decades.
Which, as you can imagine, immediately triggered an equally aggressive counteroffensive from the political right.
Oh, absolutely. Conservative allies and GOP lawmakers just slammed the Democrats for launching attacks during a medical crisis.
Right, they were furious. Representative Nancy Mace called Schiff's remarks utterly classless.
And former Governor Mike Huckabee called it a new low for Schiff, adding he didn't think Schiff could sink any lower.
Yeah, and Representative Lisa McClain described the Democratic response as a disgraceful hit piece. Plus, President Trump took to Truth Social to publicly praise Gabbard, saying she did an, quote, incredible job.
So you have both sides immediately retreating to their corners. They are using a family health crisis as the opening bell for a partisan brawl.
It is wild to watch. Looking at this reaction, it makes you think of an audio feedback loop for you to consider.
Oh, like with a microphone.
Yeah, exactly. You know when someone places a microphone too close to a speaker, and it picks up a tiny sound, amplifies it, feeds it back in, and within seconds you just have this deafening, destructive screech.
That is a terrible sound, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
That feels like Washington right now. Throwing a lit match into a powder keg at a hospital, essentially. I mean, does this reaction prove that in modern politics, the line between personal tragedy and partisan warfare has completely vanished?
I think it does. The system is so polarized that no event is immune from instant weaponization. None.
But this total breakdown in communication didn't just happen publicly.
No,
Right?
it was happening quietly behind closed doors for months.
Because while the cancer diagnosis is the official reason for her exit, the insider sources reveal she was already being actively marginalized and pushed out of the administration.
Yes, there was a fundamental, unbridgeable policy clash between Gabbard and President Trump.
And it's centered entirely on foreign military intervention, specifically regarding Iran. Let's dig into that, because the DNI is supposed to coordinate 18 different intelligence agencies and provide the president with the most accurate, objective information in the world. So how does a breakdown happen at that level?
Well, it happens when the intelligence assessment directly contradicts the administration's political goals.
Give me an example.
So, Gabbard testified to Congress that Iran was not actively building a nuclear weapon. Her agencies assessed that Iran had made no effort to rebuild their program after previous U.S. attacks essentially obliterated it.
But President Trump publicly rejected that assessment.
He did. He literally dismissed his own intelligence chief's report as wrong and suggested she was softer than him on preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons.
Which is a huge public rebuke.
Exactly. And that disagreement escalated dramatically around something called Operation Epic Fury.
Right, the military strikes.
Yeah, Trump argued that military strikes against Iran were necessary to head off an imminent threat. But Gabbard, who has a long history of opposing foreign wars, gave a very careful, very calculated non-endorsement of those strikes.
She actually dodged questions from lawmakers about whether the White House even knew the risks of what they were doing, didn't she?
She did. Things like the potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which would choke off a massive percentage of the global oil supply.
And then she went a step further.
Right. She argued to lawmakers that it is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you there.
Sure.
Because if I am listening to this, I am probably thinking, isn't identifying a threat the exact job description of the intelligence community? Like, why would the DNI say it is not her job to determine an imminent threat?
It sounds confusing, I know, but it is a crucial distinction in how intelligence actually works.
How so?
The intelligence community gathers raw data and calculates probabilities. They look at troop movements, they intercept communications, and they say, there's an 80% chance country X will do Y.
Right. Just the facts.
Exactly. But imminent threat is a policy term. It is a legal justification for going to war. Gabbard was drawing a hard line, basically saying, we provide the facts, but the politicians have to take responsibility for deciding if those facts justify dropping bombs.
I see. It is like having a scout right ahead of an army. The scout comes back and says, the bring is out, and there are enemy troops in the trees.
That is the raw intelligence.
Right. But if the general stands up and says, the threat isn't that bad, the bridge is fine, we march tomorrow, the scout doesn't get to overrule the general.
That is a perfect analogy. But the problem here is, when the general publicly calls the scout a liar, reality fractures.
Because no one knows who to believe.
Right. When the president publicly calls the DNI's report wrong, it signals to rival nations that American leadership is flying blind.
And because of that fracture, she was essentially locked out of the room. The sources use very active verbs here to describe this. She was sidelined, she was excluded from major national security deliberations,
including key decisions on renewing those strikes on Iran and the seizure of Venezuela's then-president Nicolás Maduro.
The isolation became so severe that insiders joked her DNI title actually stood for Do Not Invite.
Do not invite.
Or the principal intelligence advisor to the President of the United States.
Yeah.
That is just wild.
It really proves the working relationship had completely disintegrated long before her resignation announcement.
So if she is completely sidelined on foreign policy, literally locked out of the room on Iran and Venezuela, why stay? I mean, why not just resign 6 months ago?
Well, because foreign policy is only half the job.
What was the other half?
While she was losing influence overseas, she was wielding immense, unprecedented power domestically. She spearheaded a transformational effort to completely reshape the intelligence community from the inside out.
And the statistics behind this restructuring are just staggering. I mean, she announced a massive 40% workforce cut to a key U.S. intelligence office. 40%.
Which is not a trim. That is an amputation.
Let me push back on that, though, for the sake of argument. A 40% cut sounds catastrophic, but weren't these agencies notoriously bloated?
It definitely grew massively.
Right, after 9/11, intelligence budgets exploded, entire new bureaucracies were created. So is it possible she was actually executing a necessary, overdue reduction in force, but the career insiders just hated her for doing the dirty work?
That is exactly what her conservative supporters argue. They view these agencies as bloated bureaucracies that need a drastic reduction in size to operate efficiently and stop wasting taxpayer money.
But her critics see it differently.
Yeah, critics point out the hidden cost, which is institutional memory loss.
What does that mean in practice?
Well, when you cut 40% of an intelligence office, you are not just firing middle management or closing an HR department. You are terminating analysts who have spent 20 years studying the dialect of a single province in Iran.
Wow, so really specialized knowledge.
Exactly. You are losing case officers who hold the exclusive trust of key foreign informants. A network of assets that took a decade to build can vanish overnight because the one person they trusted was handed a pink slip.
Because you cannot just replace that kind of human intelligence with a new hire.
No, you can't.
That makes a lot of sense. You aren't just cutting a budget, you are burning the Rolodex.
Precisely. And alongside those workforce cuts, she began revoking the security clearances of dozens of former intelligence officials.
Including really high-profile figures like former CIA Director John Brennan.
Yes, and the official reason her office gave was highly charged. They officially labeled these individuals as deep state bad actors.
Which sparked immediate outrage across the political spectrum.
It did, because traditionally, former directors retain their clearances so they can advise the current administration. They provide historical context.
Like when a crisis happens, a current director can call a former director and ask, hey, how did you handle this guy 10 years ago?
Exactly. So by stripping those clearances, she was cutting the current administration off from that historical advice.
And her critics viewed it as a purge of loyal career professionals just to satisfy a political vendetta.
Right. They argue she was systematically dismantling the independent nature of the intelligence apparatus.
And that brings us to the actions that really blurred the lines between foreign intelligence and domestic politics. Things that seem to break the fundamental charter of what the DNI is legally supposed to do.
Yeah, the most glaring example in our sources is her attendance at an FBI search of an election office in Fulton County, Georgia.
They were seizing 2020 election ballots. Why is a director of national intelligence at a local ballot counting center?
That is the exact question her critics asked. In the United States, there is supposed to be a massive, impenetrable wall between foreign intelligence gathering and domestic law enforcement.
Right. The CIA and the DNI look outward at foreign threats.
And the FBI looks inward at domestic crime.
Because we don't want spies operating against American citizens on American soil.
Exactly. So having the head of foreign intelligence physically present at a domestic ballot raid shatters that norm. It falls wildly outside the standard duties of the office.
And she didn't stop there. She publicly called for the prosecution of former President Barack Obama and his top officials over what she called the Russian collusion hoax.
She accused them of a, quote, treasonous conspiracy.
She even declassified specific documents to reveal what she characterized as a plot against Donald Trump.
And this is where the split really solidifies. For her conservative supporters, this was transparency. This was a brave official finally cleaning up corrupt agencies and exposing bad actors.
But for her critics on the left, like Adam Schiff,
for them, this was the ultimate proof that she had weaponized the intelligence community to serve as the president's personal political enforcement arm.
Which leaves us with a really difficult question to chew on. When you look at all these actions, the 40% cuts, the clearance revocations, the declassifications, how do you actually distinguish between necessary reform of a broken system and dangerous weaponization of that same system?
It almost entirely depends on trust. If you believe the intelligence agencies have grown corrupt and unaccountable, then firing 40% of the staff and revoking clearances looks like essential, life-saving surgery. It is a necessary reform.
But if you believe those agencies are fundamentally sound and essential for national security,
then firing 40% of the staff looks like a deliberate attack on the safety of the country. The dividing line between reform and weaponization usually comes down to independence.
Right. Is the director acting on objective data to protect the nation, or are they acting to protect a specific political figure?
Exactly. And because no one in Washington can agree on the answer to that question, her tenure became incredibly polarizing.
So let's pull all of these threads together for you as we wrap up.
Yeah, it is a lot to take in.
We have spent time today unpacking Tulsi Gabbard's 15-month run as Director of National Intelligence. It was a period defined by massive internal restructuring, including a ruthless 40% agency cut.
It was also marked by a highly public breakdown in trust with the president over the facts regarding Iran.
Right, and it concluded with a resignation driven by her husband's rare cancer diagnosis that instantly triggered a vicious, unyielding partisan battle.
So looking ahead, Aaron Lucas is scheduled to step in as the acting DNI on June 30.
But the broader reality remains. Gabbard is now the fourth major female cabinet-level official to leave this administration recently, leaving a massive leadership gap at the very top of the government.
It forces the community that oversees 18 different intelligence agencies to pivot to new leadership during an era of extreme global instability.
Which is terrifying. So we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own. It builds on everything we just explored regarding the scout and the general.
Right.
If the Director of National Intelligence, the one person in the government meant to objectively filter the world's most critical secrets, can become so politically polarized and marginalized that they are literally nicknamed "Do Not Invite," how does that impact the raw intelligence that actually reaches the president's desk during the next global crisis?
Because if the scout is afraid to report the truth, or if the scout's network of informants has been fired, the raw data just stops flowing.
And an administration that marches forward without accurate intelligence is marching into the dark.
Absolutely.
Think about that the next time an international crisis breaks and you see officials arguing about the facts on the ground. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the sources. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the immediate headlines, and we will catch you next time.